This is GARIS Masculist MGTOW flyers, that is 2 3-page essays on the themes of masculism and MGTOW, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. This is flyer number 355, entitled "The Masculist FIPping of Women is one of history's major milestones." This is continuing of the flyer part 2. Continuing straight on. So let's jump a few years into the future, in which masculism has spread throughout the culture, and that tremendous political, social and legal pressure is placed on the gender politicians to men-fair the gender laws. And let us assume that that is what happens. All legal discriminations against men are removed across the board. For example, the divorce courts are men-faired. For example, custody of kids is made joint automatically. Alimony is thrown out. The original owners of the house get to keep it. Women are pushed hard to FIP up. The para is legislated, and any gender politician who opposes it risks assassination at the hand of murderously angry masculist activists who see such feminazis as vermin, to be eliminated, so that half of the population, that is men, get to have the same rights as women. Assume all this men-fairing has taken place so that populations do not get wiped out, although, in brackets, a partial population decrease may be a good thing to solve the global warming problem, given there are way too many people on the planet. Close brackets. Now masculist moral pressure can fully come into its own on women. Masculists will be able to hold a figurative knife to the throats of women and society by telling women, quote, "FIP up or be manless. No calculus, no baby." Nearly everyone will have become bi-conscious by this time. That is, they will have had both their masculist consciousness raised as much as their feminist consciousness raised. They will be conscious of how men oppress women as how women oppress men. For example, with women's financial parasitism, which lasts decades and hence is far worse than men's oppression of women. In brackets. Men will not be reticent to exert strong moral pressure on women to FIP up, to take responsibility for their own lives, especially financially. Every high school and campus by then will have a masculist group exerting strong moral pressure on young women to FIP up. Parents and primary/secondary school teachers will push women to FIP up. There's a long way to go in this regard, because in today's world, 3/4 of young women at age 16 at high school choose to become fluffy crappers, studying fluffy crap majors such as English literature, history, languages, etc., that exclude them from studying STEM majors and the professions at college, so that these fluffy crappers end up with a fluffy crap diploma that the economy does not value and pays poorly for. These fluffy crappers then end up fluffies in their 30s, being conscious that they are incapable of affording a middle-class house to raise her kids in, so she goes hunting for some gullible manslave to parasite on, leeching off his money, so that he pays for her to sit on her fat parasitic ass in his middle-class house, raising her kids, having him pay for it all, as well as her knowing that a decade later, after she has her house and kids, when she gets bored with him, her 41st penis, she can financially crucify him in the fluffy feminist-dominated divorce courts that are so biased, so favourable to women, since they have been taken over by misandrist, male-dumping, feminazi bitches who see men as toxic, to be robbed and abused, to be hated. Men are now masculisting at an exponential rate thanks to the internet. They are waking up to the massive injustices committed in the divorce courts. No para, the gender crimes committed against men by women. For example, paternity fraud. No para, forced fatherhood due to lying about not taking the pill, etc. Men are waking up, getting very angry, and are building a masculist movement to men-fair the gender laws and putting enormous moral pressure on women to FIP up and even better, to vote with men, to men-fair the gender laws. Otherwise men, who obviously have monopoly possession of sperm, can threaten women with babylessness unless women vote with men this way. Some women may scoff at this threat, saying, "I can get pregnant any day of the week I want. I only have to go down to the pub, pick up some horny guy, and have a one-night stand and get pregnant." The Masculists say to this claim, sure, you can do that, but you're forgetting about your female hypergamy, that is, your female instinct to mate up, that is, with a superior male, whose superior DNA you want for your kid. If the father is some trash male, you will have a trash kid, and that horrifies you, so you won't do it. It's the quality men, the superior, smarter men, who are the first to go masculist, to wake up to the massive injustices committed daily against men. They are the first to reject marriage and paternity and influence the lower classed men to do the same. In today's world, in many Western countries, and even more so in Korea and Japan, 2/3 of young men reject marriage and paternity, because modern marriage for men is such a shitty deal that only foolish and ignorant men marry nowadays. Young women are now panicking increasingly as they become aware that the quality men they want to mate with refuse to give them their sperm. The sperm boycott by MGTOWs and Masculists. As more and more men become active Masculists and MGTOWs, they will force women to FIP up, to behave as responsible adults by getting career competent educations. The FIPping of women, millions of them, and in time billions of them, will prove to be one of the greatest social and legal changes in history as societal norms change, as parents, teachers, potential boyfriends, peers, etc. push women hard to FIP up. Today's deeply held attitudes and expectations of women that men exist on this earth to pay for women to have babies will die out, to be replaced by the Masculinist attitude and policy, FIP up or be manless. No calculus, no baby. Men have the financial power to force women to FIP up, because by definition a fluffy can only be a fluffy if she can get her financial claws into some gullible manslave. But thanks to the internet and the MGTOW and Masculist movements, the supply of such ignorant, gullible man-slaves who are unaware of the toxicity of the fluffy feminist-dominated divorce courts is drying up as Masculist ideas spread throughout the culture, waking men up, liberating them from man-slavery, teaching them to spit at fluffies and to hate the hypocrisy of fluffy feminists who want equal rights with men in the parliaments but behave as fluffy parasites in the divorce courts, rejecting equal obligations with men by not bothering to get a career competent education so that they can be financially responsible as adults. Masculinist moral pressure will ensure that women FIP up, or they'll be punished by men by being manless, hence loveless, sexless, babyless, and spat at. This moral pressure coming from the Masculists will be overpowering, so that young women will have no choice but to FIP up. If not, they'll be ostracised by all sides, by men, by other women, by society, by teachers, by professors, by the media, by movies, etc. They will be shunned. Since women hate being publicly criticised, they will conform. It's in their nature. Women are a lot more herd animals than men, since they evolved that way. In the distant past, those women who were incapable of attracting the attentions of a man risked starvation, being deprived of male-hunted meat. So if she had not evolved a same-sex solidarity, she would not be able to be given male-hunted meat from other women. Hence, women conform to each other much more readily than men do. For example, look at women's fashion. Masculists can use this horror coming from women of social rejection to Masculist advantage. like creating a social norm that women are to FIP up or suffer social exclusion, a crushing blow for a woman. So, over the next few decades, as masculism becomes institutionalized, legalized, millions and later billions of women will adopt a FIP role in their lives, have their 2 kids, time their careers and child raising so that populations don't get wiped out in the long term. Future historians will remark that the masculisting of the world population was one of the major milestones in global history, as important as the male invention of the pill and the careering of women starting in the 1960s. By way of a side note, as a rather futurist thinking person, for example, my notion of the Artelect War, Google it, I can see, or rather foresee, the enormous importance of the masculist FIPping of women and how much it will change society. Since I like playing devil's advocate with myself, I have sometimes wondered what could put a spanner in the works regarding the above scenario, that is, the masculist FIPping of women. One idea I had is that AI, artificial intelligence, may create robots that are so smart that they take away most of the jobs, so that those people who remain employable have to be increasingly smarter, since the IQ of the robots keeps rising every year, replacing workers of ever higher human intelligence. In other words, the threshold human intelligence level to be employable will keep rising, so that in time almost everyone will be unemployed, so that governments will be forced to give their populations a UBI, that's Universal Basic Income, in order to prevent a revolution in which the politicians are massacred. In a UBI world, the masculist emphasis on the FIPping of women would become rather irrelevant, since both sexes would be largely unemployed and unemployable, due to having a human IQ lower than the employment threshold IQ. In such a world, gender politics would become redundant and relegated to the dustbin of history. I accept that. It may happen. But if so, it will take several decades for machines to get that smart. I should know. AI, and in fact artificial brains, was the research field I largely pioneered. That is, the artificial brains. So for the next few decades at least, the masculist FIPping of women is still on the cards. A whole generation of men, that is, those alive now, are not going to tolerate being financially massacred by the hated fluffy feminist hypocrites, and will wipe them out by FIPping women. I see such a historical development as inevitable. It's just a question of time, and is already underway. The fact that masculists like myself are making masculist flyers and videos like this one is proof of that. Cheers. Prof. Dr. Hugo de GARIS. Prof. Hugo de GARIS at yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. Author of the book Masculism, Men's Rebellion Against Being Manslaves to Women, an e-textbook of 350 plus masculist flyers for men's studies courses. Freely downloadable in Microsoft Word format from my website. Ciao.